Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellency, thank you so much for this interview with Kurdistan 24 TV. It's a great honor for us to have this interview with the ambassador of one of the greatest country in the world, Netherlands, in terms of economy and also in terms of democracy and human rights. That's why they call Netherlands the most liberated country in the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and
It's my
welcome
pleasure entirely.
to Kurdistan.
Thank you very much.
Recently you have a meeting with the Prime Minister, Mr. Masroor Barzani. Which issue do you have discussed with the Prime Minister?
I try to make a point of it every time when I'm over from Baghdad, where I sit as ambassador, of course. Yeah. Whenever I come to the Kurdistan region in Iraq, I always try to see the Prime Minister. And we covered actually a whole range of issues: political, security, commercial, the human rights situation, the cooperation with the Peshmerga, all of it, let's say. So we really go through all the issues.
All right.
And we'll build up a good bond between our two countries.
Okay. Let me start with my questions. As you know, and currently Iraq faces a very complicated, in terms of political and military situation. What's your views about the tackling of this political and military issues in Iraq?
Yes, well, obviously this was one of the issues on our agenda today as well, because clearly we are in a complicated stage of the cabinet formation for the entire country. Yesterday the parliament session should have opened to elect the president. As you know, we all know, the viewers know this, it hasn't happened yet. And there's a clear relationship, of course, between the political negotiations going on in Baghdad between the different parties. So this was one of the things that we discussed. And from our perspective as foreigners, of course, we hope that Iraq will soon get a good government that reflects the elections that were held on the 10th of October. As you know, we were also observing the elections in many places, also here in the Kurdistan region. And we'd like to see a new government that we can cooperate with again. So this was definitely something we discussed.
So do you think that we should see stability in Iraq?
It certainly is a precondition. To have a good, stable government is also very important for stability, of course, in the entire country. That is clearly related, as it is in all countries. It's not unique in that sense. But it will take a little bit of time,
of course.
I understand, and also from my discussions with Prime Minister Masroor Barzani, there are ideas, of course, who should be the president. There are others who have other ideas. And eventually this is something not up to foreigners, this is up to Iraqis collectively to decide.
Your Excellency, Iraq is a multi-ethnic society, you know that, with no strong record of democracy. And do you think that, and you know that democracy is a culture, we don't have this culture in Iraq. Do you think that this democracy would be succeeded in Iraq in the future?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I think even if I look at my own country, also democracy wasn't made in a day. It is a process, it is something that needs to grow, as you said, it's a culture. I see good signs. The elections themselves, for instance, as you probably know, there were foreign observers both from the United Nations side and from the European Union side, and they observed that the elections this time around were actually better run than the ones in 2018, so there is progress there. But democracy doesn't only come through elections. Democracy is everywhere. Democracy is also in your home. If you have, a free environment to be able to say to your father, no, I want to study something else. Democracy is also how you deal in a school. Is the teacher just telling you, shut up, you learn this? Yeah. Or is there a discussion ongoing? Democracy is everywhere. Democracy is a way of life. And this is something that doesn't happen overnight. It is a process. And we feel strongly about that we are partners, both to the Iraqi Central Republic and to the Kurdistan region in Iraq. We are here to help that process along. And basically have all sorts of lectures, seminars, schedules, trainings, etc. Basically to make that transition towards a more democratic society.
Beautiful. Let us come to the military situation. As you know, recently as ISIS has recognized itself as a planned massive attacks in both Syria and Iraq. How do you analyze the re-emergence of ISIS in the region, especially in Iraq?
Yeah. As you know, the Netherlands is a member of the anti-ISIS coalition.
Yeah.
We played a role in that, and very happy, of course, that in 2017 the caliphate as such was defeated. But we're also super aware that even though ISIS as a caliphate was defeated, the way of thinking of ISIS, let's say, and even some structures have not been totally destroyed. So we're constantly aware of that, which is the reason why we stayed, why we are still a member of the anti-ISIS coalitions. We have troops here even in different parts. You're referring also to the outbreak, of course, in the prison in Hasaka. This is a very, very worrying sign. I'm glad that it was, somewhat under control after a week, but it's still of great concern. Unfortunately, it isn't over, and this is a subject that we discuss on a very regular basis with both the officials in Baghdad and here in Erbil.
All right. Say that the Peshmerga forces have fought ISIS not just for Kurdistan and Iraq, for the entire of the whole, on behalf of the world. Netherlands is a member of this coalition. Has always supported the Peshmerga forces. I mean, during the fights against ISIS and now. Can you make a comment now about the future of your helping Peshmerga in a different way?
Yeah. First of all, let me express here also to the viewers our unbelievable deep appreciation and really awe of the role that Peshmerga has played. This is something deeply felt from the heart. It is amazing contribution. I think from our side, we do it in two ways. We're part of the anti-ISIS coalition. That, for instance, is an effect that we have here 150 troops in Erbil guarding the airport. That's part of the anti-ISIS coalition. We also do things on a bilateral basis. For instance, we have army officers that help the Kurdish region in Iraq, or the Kurdish Ministry of Peshmerga Affairs, into trying to see how you can unify the different parts of Peshmerga in order to make it a more strong, more unified unit, let's say. There's some really good progress. It's not easy, of course, it's slow. But for instance, great strides have been made in the pension reform. Electronic payment systems have been introduced. Certain brigades from both the 70s and the 80s have been merged under the leadership of the Minister of Peshmerga Affairs. Tomorrow I'm going to have a meeting with the Deputy Minister to discuss this as well. But as you said, it's a culture. Just like with democracy is a culture, also the unification is a culture. And it takes time.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ambassador, that was my question. You answered it, but what about the unifying these two sides, I mean, the 70 and 80 Peshmerga forces? Have you reached?
I think, again, this is not something that happens overnight. I think there's some really good signs where you see that indeed different forces are transferred into the control of the Ministry of Peshmerga Affairs. So that's a good step. But then still, it will take more to actually really start thinking into a culture where Peshmerga is the army that defends Kurdistan, and not just the interest of one political party.
In which way you could help them to do that?
By basically creating structures where they work in the same house, let's say. Okay. These are very technical things. It means that you start by gluing together what is called command and control.
Oh, right.
And slowly getting used to each other's system, use the same uniforms, use the same way of being paid, use the same schedule of when you retire. All of those things are unifying and slowly getting together. And many countries have gone through this. You're not unique in that sense. Other countries have gone before you. It is doable.
All right, Mr. Ambassador, you mentioned that you have a forces, and I think 150 soldiers to protect the airport. This is among the international coalition against ISIS, or just Dutch?
No. This is part of the anti-ISIS coalition. Now, for the time being, it happens to be that particular force protection of the airport. But the coalition, of course, decides itself where forces are necessary, and different countries do different things. But it's all part of the same collective effort to help both Iraq and the Kurdistan region in Iraq to defend itself against ISIS.
Right. Let me ask about agriculture. You know that Netherlands is one of the most powerful country, number one, I could say number one in the world in terms of agriculture. In which way you could help the Kurdistan region? Because we have a good land, we have water, we have everything. Yeah. In which way you could help, I mean, the Kurdish people to stand up against that?
Let me correct you. We're only the second biggest exporter in the world in terms of agriculture. The United States is slightly bigger, but a small country like the Netherlands can be number two.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously we have a wealth of experience in both agriculture, horticulture, cows, goats, you name it. On all fields we have that. So we support that both in business to business. We try to bring Dutch agricultural entrepreneurs, business people, to come to Kurdistan, invest, and basically together make money. Even the other week there was another 200 cows exported to Kurdistan, set up a milk factory, make cheese, etc. The simple things. The same has been done with goats. The same has been done with horticulture. Gardenia, you might know, very famous here. That is actually a Kurdish person that spent time in the Netherlands, learned my language, picked up some skills, and boom, here, together, they can make business. So that's the business to business part. Also, some of it is, of course, trying to do the right things in terms of IDPs. You have still many IDPs. Wherever they are, we don't only supply housing or health or something like this, but we also try to look at other possibilities to basically create some agricultural jobs there, so that they actually better their lives. So it has many, many levels, and we certainly do that with great pleasure. Here in seed potatoes is another one. Tomorrow I have a meeting with Noura Al-Rad. Last year, together with Masroor Barzani, I opened the big potato chips factory in the Hoek. 6 million euros investment. So we do it in all levels, let's say. If it's agriculture, talk to the Dutch.
Okay, Your Excellency, a part of agriculture, would you like, I mean, Netherlands is also strong country, not just in agriculture. In which term, if you wanted to invest in Kurdistan, in which other terms? I mean,
sir, it's like you said it. You have everything. You have the land, you have the sun, but you also have the people. And part of the people is that you have a very young population. So one of the things we do, for instance, is called the Orange Corners project, is where we support young startups, young people, 20, 22, that kind of range ages, with new ideas, and they can be in many, many different sectors. IT, all sorts of housing schemes.
What about industry?
Restaurants. Yes, sometimes it's small industry. It can be many different things. It could be plastics. It could be any. Actually, there is no limit to wherever there's a business opportunity. We will try to jump on it.
Mr. Ambassador, I have this question, and I want you to answer me very directly and very openly. As you know, and in a kind of comparison between Kurdistan and the rest of Iraq in terms of security, prosperity, investment, human rights, and democracy. Can you say something about that?
Sure. No, absolutely. Clearly, it is more easy to do business in the Kurdistan region in Iraq because the security is better here. It is much more difficult to convince a Dutch businessman to come to parts of central Iraq, let's say, because of the security being absent there, or more challenging, let's say. So what I thought is, our vision is that we would try to find areas where the already successful cooperation between Dutch business and Kurdish business can actually be rolling over also to central Iraq. And we try to, make good examples. Where you create a good example, others will follow. But you also mentioned human rights. I'm very glad that you mentioned that, because in any good relationship between friends, also you need to be able to share concerns. I did share concerns, also today with the Prime Minister. I said, we are concerned. The United Nations has recently made a report about some concerns about the judiciary here in the Kurdish regions as well. And I think this is important, to be able to say these kind of things. Sometimes it can be incidents, very, very sad. Very recently, a person of transgender was killed.
Yes.
And of course, we impressed, and again I did today, that I find it very important as friends to be able to say, please catch the killer. Because it is those kind of things that determine the business environment in which both of us work together. And those concerns need to be made, and I hope they will be taken seriously.
Good, fantastic. I mean, the Kurdish people known as, very well known as for hospitality and friendship. What takes your attention most about your visit to Kurdistan?
Absolutely. I think Kurdish is a synonym for hospitality. I always feel so warm, as if I'm coming home. It really is. As a diplomat, of course, I roam the world. This is what diplomats do. And there are very few places in the world where I feel more at home than here in Kurdistan. And this is also the reason why I enjoy very much. Every time I have the possibility to come north, basically from Baghdad to Erbil, I will do that. And not just Erbil, also in Suli, in Duhok, Halabja, Zaho tomorrow, different places, let's say. And everywhere where I come, I feel very much welcomed.
Your Excellency, as you know, there are too many Kurdish people. I mean, more than, I don't know, nearly 10,000, something like that. I mean, a Kurdish community in Netherlands. What's your view about those community? I mean, especially the Kurdish community. Has they integrated with the Dutch people?
It's a hugely strong bond. Not just that. You say there's 10,000 Kurds in the Netherlands. There's actually 7,000 with Dutch passports here in Kurdistan as well. Even this morning, I walk into the office of the Prime Minister. The guy from the protocol department says, "Hey, hello, ik kom uit Amsterdam." You know, he's from Amsterdam. So it's everywhere. Everywhere we find people that have some link with the Netherlands. Even all the way up to the foreign minister of this country, Wat Hussein. He's also linked to the Netherlands. So there are many